Do you always sit in the same place when you come in to meditate? I know I do because I have to. You do. I don't know over there, is it too sunny sometimes in the morning for you? No, just right, okay. Excellent. I thought what I would do this morning is to answer some of the questions first of all. Is that a good idea? Okay. May I have the questions? They're too far away. Thank you, Gerald. See what they say this morning. Dear Ajahn, thanks for your wonderful teaching. I'm going to stop there. That's. I understand the purpose of mindfulness is to free the self from all the experience. Then the mind can really see the beauty of the nature. That's one of the purposes. No worry and fear at all. If you really see it with worry, you can't see it properly. If you see it with fear, that also blurs the vision. But if you are just mindful and free, you can see basically there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to fear and worry about. And life happens, but sometimes the mind is stronger and brighter than any fear. For the true happiness you gave to me, I want to tell you a bad joke from the internet in return. There's no such thing as a bad joke. I say no such thing as a bad meditation. A person has the intention to make me happy and to share this with everybody. So let's see what it says. The student asked the Venerable whether they could send emails to him. I suspect what the punchline is. Okay, yes, the Venerable said, yes, you can, but without any, yes, right, attachments. But I always say, it's good to have attachment. If you're riding on the back of a motorbike, please be attached. Or if you're going on the aircraft and there's turbulence, please be attached. Please cling on. But when you get to the other end, that's when to let go. There's a time to be attached, and there's a time to let go. Right now, we still have another half a day of retreat left. So now is a time to let go and enjoy the retreat. Later on, when you leave this retreat, you're attached by all the duties which people expect of you. So this is the time to let go now. And later on, attachment will come and attach to you, will grab you. Does that make sense? You know, some years ago I was reading an email yesterday. I still have to do email stuff. And then when I was actually over in the UK, and one of the followers said she was very, very, very inspired by me. And so much so, I don't know if any of you have ever done this. If so, please don't. She bared her arm. And she had a huge tattoo of me on her arm. That's what I call devotion. I think that's going a bit too far. So, have any of you got tattoos? Are they allowed in Hong Kong, or are they encouraged? They're encouraged, yeah. If you do have a tattoo, please not of a monk. How should we treat us? Oh yeah. How should we treat ourselves? Means love ourselves. Thank you. Oh, that's a wonderful question. You know that story which I often tell of the meaning of love? I'm not talking about attached love. No, the real love, which gives out to everybody and everything. When you say to open the door of your heart, no matter what the other thing has done, no matter what life gives you. And there's always that time that you say that to yourself as well. You look in the mirror, in the morning, afternoon, evening, whenever there's a mirror around, you look at it and say to yourself, me, this person I've known all my life, you've done good things, silly things, bad things. It doesn't matter what you've ever done. You accept it, forgive it, learn from it. As you say to yourself, the door of my heart will always be open to me. If it's a beautiful thing you've done, you rejoice in it. Pat yourself on the head. If it's a silly thing you've done, never mind. I will learn from that. And anything in between, you always understand that's how we grow. It's from similes like that, stories like that, I always learn that even the stupid things which I do, and the bad things which I've done. Have you remembered all the bad things I've done in my life? Freddie, what's the worst thing I've ever done? I tell so many stories. Sorry? Penny, oh, yeah. That was a long time ago. But I do remember one other scary thing which I did. And that was when I still was a student at Cambridge, one of my friends got married. So you had to go to his marriage ceremony. And after the marriage ceremony, you were standing around with your friends, all well dressed. And then we had this stupid conversation. You know what young men are like? Even though they're supposed to be high flyers in Cambridge, nevertheless we say incredibly stupid things. And the question which we started asking was, who's going to be next? One of my friends had got captured, married I mean. And then we looked at this other guy and said, yeah, he's going to be next. And then we looked at him and said, nah, no one would marry him. And then they looked at me and they said, my lay name was Peter, he'll be next. And then they looked at me and said, nah, no one would marry him. And at that time, there was this girl standing next to me, and she whispered in my ear, I would. Oh, honestly, that was the scariest moment of my life. I was terrified. And that was really unfair, but I didn't like her, but when she did something like that, that was for a guy, that was really scary. That's how kind of stupid you were when you were young. But nevertheless, I hope wherever she is in her world, that she's happy. And thank you for not taking that any further and letting me become a monk. I always feel that that's where I belong, in a brown robe. And I told you all those stories. As soon as I got a brown robe on, I never wanted to take it off. And had so much joy and happiness with a brown robe. And also it's a wonderful thing to do, that if you have a brown robe and you enjoy it, isn't it a wonderful thing to be able to listen to people, talk to them. There's this one example on the underground trains in UK. I already mentioned I love travelling on public transport. I still do have my little smiley token, the octopus card. It's supposed to be for old people. I don't mind being old. It's nice being old. But it's a little, so if you go on the MRT, MTR, I'm old, that qualifies me for one of those cars. Then you sit down and people can actually talk to you sometimes. And I did that once with an Oyster card in London on the Underground. I know exactly how to use that, the Underground. I grew up there. I know all where the best routes are. And I recall clearly sitting down, minding my own business, and this lady came and sat next to me. And she said, the conversation went like this: "Are you a Buddhist monk?" And I said, "Yes." "A real Buddhist monk?" I said, "I think so." And then she wanted to ask some questions about Buddhism. It's a lot of time, people would like, find an occasion, not in a big group when there's too many other people butting in. They can just sit next to you and ask their questions. What is Buddhism? How is Buddhism? What do you do? And one of the things which she was asking about was like reincarnation. That's an important subject. And said, do you believe in reincarnation? I said, yes. But how can you know it's true? And that's when I started talking about the meditation, which she was really interested in. And I was saying that it just so happened that just a few weeks beforehand, while I was in Australia, one of the students had these amazing experiences in meditation. He said he was Italian by birth, but meditating in Australia. And I said, when he was meditating, got so still and peaceful, he had this vision. That he was a strand of spaghetti. You know spaghetti? I had that for lunch yesterday. It was delicious. And I kind of first of all thought it's a little bit weird, but then he said the next day he had a vision of a piece of macaroni. He was Italian. And I said, I understand what that is. You are remembering your past lives. Now I said that in an underground train. It was pretty full. She laughed. But I looked at all the other passengers in the train. They also laughed. Or half of them, the ones who didn't laugh, groaned. But I was surprised they were all listening. Just like you were listening. And it kind of showed me that if you make the Dhamma amusing, attractive, many people listen, even though they wouldn't admit they were listening. They were just looking at their iPhones. But then when I said the punchline, the past lives, they all looked up and groaned. It was one of those magic moments. I was teaching the whole tube train. And so the advantages of just being a monk who's not quiet. Now, when I'm not in the tube train, I am very quiet. But when you're not in the tube train, you can tell stories, sometimes funny stories, little anecdotes. And then those are things which kind of you can add wonderful messages to. And that's where people can learn the Dhamma much better than any book. But you know, sometimes people don't like reading books. Like that was that story of this Malaysian disciple over in Perth. And one day, I just asked her how life was going. She said, very good. And she thanked me for having a nice monastery and city centre where she could come to. But she said that she was married to an Australian man. And the Australian man did not like religion. She said, I know, it would be wonderful if he could come to the temple with me. Have you ever had that experience when, you're married, one of you loves doing meditation, coming to the temple, but your partner doesn't? She said, that's the one thing which I really miss, that when I come to the temple, my husband's not here. He's usually at home watching football. He's one of those kind of guys. I said, can you help me? I said, easy. I know the solution. I said, while you're here, can you please buy one of my books, like the Opening the Door of Your Heart book? That's very popular, easy to read. But you won't read it. Of course not. Please be patient and listen to what the real solution is. Buy it, take it home, and when you take it home, tell your husband, keep your hands off of this is mine. It's so easy, psychology. So, she put it in her room, and when she was out shopping somewhere, she can't tell me what I can read, what I can't read. So he started reading it from cover to cover. He finished the whole book in one sitting. And now he came every week with his wife. That's how to catch somebody. You say, don't do it. It's like 1 year. You know what it's like with Biff? You have to get someone to do the work, someone to lead it, someone to be the accountant and whatever. And so 1 year we're having a lot of difficulty getting someone to volunteer to be our president of the BSWA. And there's one lady who's very efficient, very good meditator. I thought she'd make an excellent president. So I asked her, her name was Rachel, because the place of president of BSWA is open for next year. Would you like to volunteer? She said, no, I'm too busy. Have you ever, you've had that problem finding someone to volunteer for a position in a busy organization? No, I know how to do this. I should have been a business monk. So I looked at her and said, actually, I should not have invited you. I know how busy you are. That's what happens when very good people, very efficient organizers, they get invited to do so much stuff. And I said, no, look, I'm sorry, please forgive me for even inviting you. Now please listen to me. I'm going to ban you if you change your mind and want to join. I'm sorry, but I will veto it. And then I left. Next day she volunteered. and she was our president for 2 or 3 years. The point is that I can't veto anything. I can say, no, I don't agree, but it's a committee, it's the members. They're the ones who vote for you, not me. So I said, I'm sorry, I just can't keep my promise. And she looked at me and said, you never meant to keep it, did you? I said, correct. Sometimes it's nice when you know people's psychology. It's a good thing for them to do. For 2 or 3 years, she learned so much and enjoyed so much. Like being like a president of a Buddhist society. Being able to help and serve and grow, from all the things which she heard. and all the things which you do. Sometimes, I appreciate when you think, take a rest, Ajahn Brahm, you're working too hard. I can't. If someone comes up and they need some help, how on earth can you say no? If you need some advice on meditation, of course, I will pick it up and answer it. Then you don't get tired. Tiredness comes from when you keep thinking about it. And you do the response which is not kind. But I don't think about others. It's true, I don't think about myself. I don't think about anyone. And when you do think, the most important people will always be us. And I'm included in that. And that's a much better way. I say that when I bless marriages. I enjoy this when it's someone who doesn't know me that well. And I look at, say, the bride. Look her in the eyes. They've just exchanged rings. I look her in the eyes and said, you're a married woman now. From today on, you must not think of yourself. And she's always excited being married, and she smiles and agrees straight away. Then I look at the guy, especially Australian guys. I don't know what it is with Australian guys. But I look at him too and said, you're a married man now, and you must not think of yourself. He pauses. But then he agrees. And then still looking at the man, just newly married, I say from today on, if you want to be happy, you must not think of her, your wife. Then I'm also looking at sort of all the family as well. That's what I like the most. Because the family were wondering, did I hear that correctly? The new husband must not think of his wife. Yes. I look at the wife, and from today on, you're a married woman. You must not think of him, your husband. Actually, you haven't heard this before because you're acting the same. You're wondering, is this a joke? Is there a punchline somewhere? It's not a joke. I mean this. It's a really deep Dhamma. We're very effective. You give me that look the family give me, and then even Buddhists. They don't figure it out until I tell them. Once you're married, you must not think of yourself. You must never think of your partner. You must only think of us. If you think of yourself, that's not a marriage, that's selfishness. If you think of the other, you get burnt out. Do you know what I mean? Even if you are working for BIF, Bodhinyana International Foundation, if you keep thinking of others, there's nothing in it for you. You get burnt out. If you don't think of the others, why are you in the executive committee? Please, whenever you're on any committee, any organizing group, please always think of us. You're included. Which is why, when you spread compassion, may the door of my heart always be open to all beings. You are one of those beings. That's why later on when I do the loving kindness meditation, I'm giving my secrets away. At the end, actually not the end, about 2/3 or 3/4 through, I usually say you've forgot somebody. As you spread your loving kindness over the whole world, over everybody, over the new Ayatollah of Iran, over Donald Trump, including, everybody. And then I say, you've forgotten someone. And that's yourself. And that's a beautiful moment. Once you've got that loving kindness really growing strong, Then you imagine yourself, you're looking yourself in the mirror, say, me, this person you've known for such a long time. You've taken a lot of criticism, a lot of praise. You've experienced love, you've experienced getting angry. You know, the whole range of being a human being in this realm. You look at yourself, smile, and say, the door of my heart is open to me, to yourself. And you mean it. When you can accept your faults, they transform, they're not faults. I call them idiosyncrasies. You know, you've known me for such a long time. You know I tell silly jokes. That's kind of who I am. And you know where I gave this talk to the monks in Bodhinyana several years ago. And Ajahn Sujato, he was doing the recording of the talk then. And so he gave it the title, Why Ajahn Brahm Tells Silly Jokes. That's the title of the talk. And of course, when you give a talk, a silly title like that, you know, people listen to it. And the reason was, and I explained it to everybody, it's called conditioning. You know, it's how you were brought up, how you were trained, how you were brainwashed when you were young. And the brainwasher was my father. And I remember clearly when he came home from work one day, and he told us, I got some very sad news. So, you know, one of my distant relatives, you know, he had a motorbike crash. And he said after he went to hospital, the doctors kind of decided they had to amputate one leg. You know, it was not viable anymore. But it does happen, he said, that they put him into the theatre and they amputated the wrong leg. Apparently, even these days, people in top hospitals, you know, they actually put a sign on there, this one. The reason is because it's one person, you know, does, you know, one part of the surgery, you know, say which one to take off, and the other one that's not viable. So many people involved, the mistakes do happen. So as soon as they found out they had amputated the wrong leg, they took him straight back into the theatre to amputate the other leg to save his life. And when he found out, you know, he was a smart guy, he took the hospital to court, he sued them. He lost his case. He didn't have a leg to stand on. And my father told me that joke. I too thought he was being serious. So that's the reason. It's not my fault I tell bad jokes. It's how I was brought up. And I kind of value that. So a lot of time when my father said something, you know, half the time it was jokes. And I love that. It made, you know, the life at home happy. And we laughed a lot. Isn't that a wonderful way to grow up? Even once, I can't resist this. You know, for 1 year I was a school teacher. I don't know if you know that, but I was. And so I was teaching maths. And so it was the end of year exam. You remember those? And the end of the year exam, it was not an important year, you know, not O levels or A levels or anything. But I had to set the exam in math. So I went to the principal and said, is it okay? It's not an important year. I put a joke in the exam paper. He had a look at the joke. He wasn't rude or anything, and he said, "Yeah, okay, go on." And I still remember the occasion that when it was an exam, every kid did take it seriously, even though they didn't need to. And they came in, and all the chairs were separated, separate desks, and the exam paper was upside down on the desk. And because I set the exam, I had to be what's called the invigilator. You know, the teacher who sat at the top was looking to make sure no one was cheating. And I said, you will have an hour and a half to answer these questions. When I say go, I want you to turn over the exam paper, read it carefully, and then you have an hour and a half to finish it. And you could see all of those kids. It was like they were doing some test, and if you failed it, you'd get killed. And they were just so scared. And there's a few of them I taught. I knew sort of their background. They had a hard childhood, and they were really scared. Then when they turned over the paper, they started reading. Everything was very quiet. And someone laughed. They tried to stop it, and they looked up at me, and I had this big, stupid grin on my face. And I said, yes, that's a joke. I put that under on purpose, to relax you. So when you started the exam, you realize there's more important things in life than passing exams. And that worked. Many of the kids who were scared beforehand, even though they didn't need to be, relaxed. And they had all wonderful exam results, better than they expected. So I love things like that. This wasn't the joke which I put in there, but it's similar. There were 26 sheep in a field. 10 died. How many survived? What's the correct answer? 16, that's the wrong answer. You'd have got failed in my math class. I'll repeat it. Listen carefully. 26 sheep in a field. 10 die. How many survive? How many? 26 sheep in a field, 10 die. How many survive? The answer is 10. I'll say it slowly. 20 sick sheep. That's why they died. They were sick. That's the type of math which I like teaching. So I better carry on and do real questions. But anyway, do you have any example to share that a person is aware that he or she is in one of the 7 lives of a stream enterer, please? I do know an example of a person who was in the last life of his journey to enlightenment. There was this story, I'm sure you've heard about it, of this person. As soon as he was born, he walked 7 steps. This is my last life. Now the truth of the matter is that if you're a stream winner, that when you are born and when you are young, you don't know you're a stream winner. You're just an ordinary person, but you're usually a very good person. a very kind person, not perfect. You've still got some things to train yet. But then, if you've been a stream winner, only at most 6 more lives to go, because the one where you become a stream winner is the first life. Then you'll re-experience that Dhamma again. Sometimes, you know the story of, the Bodhisattva, Siddhartha Gautama, that when his father was doing some business, he was like royalty, the head of the big clan of Sakyans. He was doing the ploughing ceremony, and his 6 or 7-year-old kid, Siddhartha Gautama, was just bored, just sitting under a tree, shading himself from the sun. And he entered the first jhana. If you know what that first jhana is, you kind of understand what he was doing and why he was doing it. It wasn't intentional. He'd been a monk before, under Kassapa the Buddha, when he was sitting still at 6 or 7 years of age, letting go, doing nothing. That's when those, so much the memories, but the tendencies from his previous life took over, and he automatically entered that jhana. Sometimes people get these experiences of deep meditation, even when they're very young, with hardly any teachings. Once I published that book, Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, which explained some of those jhanas and what they feel like. I had a number of people came to me, they weren't even Buddhists. One of them was this lady over in Penang. And the reason she came to see me, because she had this, what people told her was a psychosis. And she went to many top therapists in Malaysia, especially over in Penang, and no one could help her. And some of the disciples, my disciples over there in Penang, they said, "Can you please help her? No one else can." So I don't know, but it's worth a try. So she came in to the interview room on one of the retreats there, and she started talking to me. I said, "What happened?" And then when she started talking, then I interrupted her and said, "You would also experience this as well, and this." And her eyes went wide. "Yes! I never told you that. That's what it felt like." And there's the next thing which you'd experience. Yeah. What was it? It's not that I had experienced psychosis. She was explaining what happens when you enter a jhana and what happens afterwards. She remembered it very clearly. She had experienced the jhana and no one had ever taught her. She was one happy woman when she left. It was not a psychosis. You automatically experience one of these deep meditations without realizing what you were doing. It's probably some past life remembrance. You kind of fluked a jhana. And she was so happy. That's one of the reasons why psychiatrists, psychologists only know so much. No one really studies jhana. And one of the reasons they don't is people who do achieve those jhanas don't want to share it. You want to enjoy it instead. One of the things, imagine trying to get into a jhana with so many electrodes on your head. You need that sort of sense of separating from the world, not being in the world and being a rat, being examined in a cage by some sort of psychologist. So that's one of the reasons why these things do occur. And for this woman, it must have been from some past. It just happened almost spontaneously, just like Siddhartha Gautama. There's a few other people I know, because I put the word around it. If you think it really is a psychosis, and these couple of things happen, come and let me know. There's one other person. She was a lady, and she was pregnant, and she was having trouble with the pregnancy. And she also, sometimes I tell the monks, fluked a jhana. And she told me all about it. I said, yeah, that was real. That was a jhana. And she was obviously so happy that someone understood, what she felt. And there wasn't anything wrong with her brain. It was just kind of natural, just rare. So that's why sometimes, I don't know how I got into that question. Oh yeah, about being a stream winner. Sometimes being a stream winner, you have some natural tendencies. Like Siddhartha Gautama just never wanted to kill a bird. When he saw his cousin Devadatta sort of shoot the bird, tried to save it and did. That natural compassion, kindness, selflessness, those are the sorts of qualities, if you've been practicing your previous lives and got something like being a stream winner, carry on into this life. Can I be controversial? Do you think Jesus was a stream winner? I was always fascinated because at school I had to study Christianity. But there's a few things which I remember from the story which fascinated me. One was when Jesus' family had to flee their homeland and go to Egypt, it said. They were refugees. If you're a refugee, what part of the country do you go to? The capital. That's where the work is. What was the capital of Egypt at that time? Alexandria, yes. In Alexandria, there was this very smart fellow called Philo, Philo, Philo of Alexandria. And in 4 AD, he wrote what do you call it? Not a travelogue, a description of Alexandria, the people, the places, the culture at that time. Philo of Alexandria. That's still available today. One of the places he talked about was this monastery of Theraputai. TheraPutae. That's what he called it. He described it. They were highly regarded. And how I remember reading a translation, there were bald-headed men and bald-headed women, separated by a wall dividing the monastery. And they ate, I think, out of bowls, and they celebrated moon days. When I read that rough translation, I thought, my goodness, that sounds like Buddhists. But I was not fluent in ancient Greek. There was one of the monks staying at Wat Banana Chat, who was Swiss, and he said he was fluent in ancient Greek. And he was going home to stay with his parents for a little while. And I say, if you have time, can you go to the library and check the manuscript written by Philo of Alexandria, where he described this monastery of Theraputai in Alexandria in 4 AD. And he thought I was crazy, like many people do. Not you. But then when I said that, he said, I'll do it out of respect for you. And he got this beautiful letter back from him. He said, Ajahn Brahm, you're right. This is what he called a dead ringer. A dead ringer is an English term, means exactly Buddhist monks and nuns. Theravada, monks and nuns. And many people have actually checked, the way that words translate from one land to another. Theraputai, Theravada. But anyway, if that is actually true, according to those texts, when Jesus did go to Alexandria, he was very interested in spirituality. He would have gone there for sure. And when he went there, he would have met Buddhist monks and nuns. And then he disappeared for a few years. Where do you think he went? Because even Philo of Alexandria in the record said, there's thousands of others down south. And that's not correct. Further down south of Alexandria is desert. But then we realized, and there's heaps and heaps of evidence on this, the trade route from Alexandria to India. You go south down the Nile, you cross over to the Red Sea. And what's the name of that port? It was Philadelphus Ptolemy built a new port on the Red Sea to actually assist that trade. And in that port, there are gravestones of the people who died building that port, with the quotes there, Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, with little wheels with 8 spokes. And from there, during the rainy season, that's when the winds are kind of predictable, and that's where the boats can take the trade over the ocean via the port of Aden, which was called Felix something or other, and then over to the port north of Mumbai, which received, what was that called again? But anyway, that received the trade, from Europe into India, and sent Indian trade back again. Now it's much more dependable than what they call the Silk Route over China. And that was ancient trade with so much evidence of its truth. And people recorded what it was like. When you have trade missions, you always send your expats over, to make sure everything is done well. That's why even this morning I was listening to some of the other Westerners in the hotel, what's it called, the Essence. That's where I had my breakfast. There's many Westerners living in Hong Kong. Why? They're working for their companies, making sure there's a trade. Hong Kong has got a great future, you think, because it's almost like an entry into China. And you have to have, your expats go there to make sure everything is going well. So those expats from India were over there in Alexandria. and the monks as well to serve them. Number two, at that time, the turn of the century, the first century, 4-5 AD, where was the center of Buddhism at that time? Center of Buddhism was in Kashmir. Emperor Kanishka had that as his center. And that's, I don't know why I keep getting into all these side alleys, but nevertheless, that's why there was this Englishman. The English were traveling everywhere and they were so highly respected. They were the world power. And so when he was hiking in Ladakh, he broke his leg. And because he broke his leg at that time, the abbot of the monastery invited him to the monastery to recover. And he was a very smart guy. I don't know if he'd already learnt the local language, but he knew a few languages. And he just, while he was recovering, he recovered in the library. And he found one book which he translated, and it mentioned this called Issa. And this Issa was born over in the Middle East, came over, studied, he was really good at herbal medicine. When he went back, he was oppressed by the Romans and crucified, but he survived. And he went back over to India. I never said that, but thank you. And for many years, when I first became a monk, I'd read that, but they couldn't find the book because the library was locked. The abbot had disappeared. When eventually they assumed the abbot must have died by now, wherever he went, then they found that book, it's there, and published it. And even today, I don't know if you've seen any documentaries, but over in Kashmir, there is a grave which everybody venerates. It's supposed to be the grave of Jesus. Eventually he died, according to them. And they put a holy Islamic man in the same grave. But they have, I remember seeing a BBC documentary, they have on that grave, as a remembrance of the first person buried there, they have the foot simile, the feet. They don't have a portrait of him, but a carving in stone of the feet, with nail wounds in them. They don't put nail wounds in Islamic sense. So all of that is really interesting. It's totally by the way, but nevertheless, it's the kind of thing which, why is it that sometimes when there's a lot of truth and evidence, we don't actually look for it? Or we say because of politics, we don't want to look at it. So anyway, shall I go back to meditation? Yeah, okay. How to have the right effort to achieve deep meditation. The right effort. If you look at it, I don't like the word effort. It does not meet just the description. It's whatever you do or don't do to make sure that bad qualities get into your mind. If they do get into your mind, how you can get rid of them. That's the first two steps. If you put effort in, as many of you know effort, do they keep bad qualities out of your mind or get rid of them? I already mentioned that time, my 6 Rains retreat, when I kept on thinking about what is Penny and other girlfriends I'd had. Is she still available? It's a stupid thought. I wanted to be a monk. Where did those thoughts come from? Was I not putting enough right effort in? How did I get rid of those thoughts? I didn't strive. I sat down in my room and said, whatever thought comes up is allowed to come up. And I watched every breath so simply. It was not what I expected. A lot of the bad or angry thoughts come up when you don't try and get rid of them. You open the door of your heart to them, make peace with them, let them be. That takes away so much of the reason why those thoughts exist. The more you try and get rid of them with more ill will, the worse they get. And good thoughts coming up. Quite naturally, you're a human being. In the cosmology of Buddhism, the human realm is quite a high realm. And if you've got good health, living in a good country, this is a good country. No, China is a good country. You live in a good country, of course, you should expect, to be so blessed. I remember reading history, the bad countries, where you'd be lucky to live to 30 or 40, you'd be dead by then. Life was so harsh. You got good hospitals, kind doctors. You can, small houses you live in, but at least you got a house. So you can see how to arouse good quality in your mind. Just thank people, praise them. Okay, you may think I'm being crazy, but praise the government. Thank you for looking after us. I could do better, but what you're doing, you're keeping us in good health, keeping us safe, allowing us to come to a retreat. Thank you. I still remember one of the monks, he got quite sick. He had to go to hospital. And afterwards, he said, they were so good to me and kind to me in hospital. Why don't you write them a letter and say thank you? So I already did that. Okay, write to the Minister of Health and thank him. Well, the politicians, the Minister of Health, that's a senior position in any government. But he followed my advice. And the Minister of Health wrote him a personal letter, not a typed letter, saying, it's so rare that I receive praise. I couldn't help but write a letter back to say thank you. I think he's still got that letter somewhere. But the fact that that could be done. Imagine you are a politician. How many times do you receive letters of thanks? The real ones, not just trying to get some promotion or trying to get on in life, or whatever, but a real praise. It was sincere. And the politician actually signed it in his own hand, in ink, not typed up. So it was wonderful. That's where I get my ideas of right effort. It's almost like right kindness. Being kind to your body when it behaves well. Thank you. How many times do you say thank you to your own body? It's great if you do. If you had a nice meditation, thank you legs for behaving. Thank you breath for just supplying the right amount of breath so I'm not over-energized, I'm not tired. You can come in and out nice and smoothly. You do a great job, breath. Thank you, my lungs. When you praise even parts of your body, it helps. I'm not being a stupid monk, because it's what I do and it works. If you've got some sort of sickness, like the one sickness, not really a sickness, but the one thing which a monk is always concerned about is digestion. So, if I have a meal, I don't just thank the donors. When you're not there, I thank my stomach and my digestive system for processing it. I do that. Thank you. Thank you, guts. Thank you, intestines and colon. Thank you, stomach. That's how I have loving kindness towards my body. That's why my body gets to know me, and it gets to know you too. All the food you give me. You were right. Those egg tarts are delicious. I had one yesterday. And so when you thank your stomach, it tends to behave. And that's when you get more healthy. Okay? Okay. Now what time is it? We're running out of time. I'll do one more question on this. What time is it?
Exactly 10 o'clock.
Was that a good talk? I don't know. I'll do one more question and make a mess of it. Just okay. Someone warned me. Oh, this is a good question. Someone warned me not to meditate, as when I'm meditating, I open myself up. What's it? Open myself up to the evil. Can go no. I open myself up, and evil can go into my body, which is dangerous and difficult to get evil out. Have a look at all the people you've been meditating with for 3 or 4 or 5 days. Are they evil? Sometimes the people you meditate with become your kindest friends. If ever you need anything, like an egg tart, you never ask for it, they give it to you. And whenever you need any help, they're there for you. It's beautiful meditating. And the evil comes when you follow advice which makes obviously no sense. The advice out of fear. Please open yourself up. It's interesting when you say, my door, my heart is opened up, but then evil might come in. It's true. But you keep the door of your heart open up so the evil can go out. Doors are to come in and go out. I think that's enough of that. Okay, one more question?
May I ask one more question?
Yes, you may.
I heard you just said you don't like the effort, the word effort.
Yeah.
So can you teach us what's the techniques to do meditation in the public transport, in a pop concert?
Even in a pop concert. People always feel that pop concerts are noisy. And there's one occasion I was raising funds for, I think it was, the retreat centre we were building. And many of you will go and stay in there and find the benefit of that. Do you have to pay any money to get in the retreat centre? There is a booking bond, but that's totally fun. And even that is only to make sure people want to go, actually to show they need to go. If it was all just totally for free, people put their name down and never turn up. So anyway, how to relax to the max in a pop concert. At the fundraiser, this wealthy lady came up to me and she showed me she had a check for $10,000 already signed, made out to the BSWA Nuns Monastery project. And this was quite a number of years ago. And 10,000 was something. That's a joke. It's always worth something. But she says, I will only donate this if you sing a song. She was challenging me. And I thought, we really need a retreat centre, and the amount of benefit it can give is enormous. Can I just sing a song? And I thought for a moment, and I told her, will you let me choose a song? And she knew I was up to something. said, okay, you can choose a song. It has to be like a famous song, like a pop song. Be number one? I said, yes, that'll do. So I said, will you allow me to sing the song? Monks aren't allowed to sing. Would you allow me to sing the song by Simon and Garfunkel? They're very famous. Yes. My version of Simon and Garfunkel's number one hit, Sound of Silence. And I got $10,000 check for the retreat center. Please never try to outwit a monk. So that's how you keep silence in a pop concert. Use wisdom power. Outwit all those people trying to disturb you. Or on public transport. We're just being silent. How rare that is. I did tell you that one of the other stories, it was really dangerous, on Bunbury Beach. I told you when kids threw stones at me. Another time, have I told you that story? I think I told you all those stories, but anyway, here it comes again. On Bunbury Beach, I had the afternoon free. I went to a very quiet place. No one was there. I sat down to meditate. Closed my eyes. It was quiet there. It was a great place to meditate. I sat down, closed my eyes, and I was meditating for 2 hours. Really still. Basically, you cut yourself off from the outside world. And when I finished, I opened my eyes, and I saw there was people out now. They were swimming in the sea. That didn't worry me so much, but what really concerned me, really concerned me, someone was sitting on my left. And I looked at her first of all. This beautiful 17-year-old blonde in a bikini. And there's another person on my right. Another 17-year-old brunette, also in a bikini. And straight away the thought came into my mind, if there was any photographer from Thailand, they would take a photograph of Ajahn Brahm at the beach, sitting next to 2 beautiful girls. How could you explain that? I told you this already, didn't I? On this retreat. So I need to explain it. It was totally innocent. These 2 girls finished end of the school exams, like the A-levels, over there it's called TAEs or whatever. And it was just entry to university. They'd finished the last exam that morning or that afternoon. And they went out to play, celebrate. And they saw this person in brown robes, bald, perfectly still, and being silent. They'd never seen that before. And they went, how is that done? They wanted to know about Buddhism. Really, you should be praised by God for doing that. You weren't going there talking to them. You actually showing what meditation is and how peaceful you can be and how you cut off all the noise outside. However, what happens is people seeing, look, what on earth is a monk doing sitting between 2 beautiful girls in bikinis? I knew they were 17 because that's the age of those final exams. And that was just in the school, which was opposite. It was quiet when I sat there, they were still doing the exams. That's my honest, true story. They say, oh yes, we know. It's true. That's why I also confessed over in, I had to do this in front of everybody over in our city centre in Nonamara once. There was all these scandals about Buddhist monks over in Thailand. And I said, I'm a monk. I have to be honest. I need to confess something. I said I'd spent some of the happiest moments of my life in the loving arms of another man's wife. Honest. We kissed, we loved each other. That was true. And just before people were heading for the door to go out forever and change their religion to something else, I said that other man's wife was my mum. Before I became a mum. It's true. I love my mother. I spent many hours in the loving arms of another man's wife. We kissed, we hugged. It's amazing how people can listen to evidence and put it in such a way they totally misinterpret it. It's true. And I can do that because I'm a good monk. 51 years, no scandals, no hidden things. So I don't care. But I thought it was funny just how we can misinterpret things so easily. So you can say that. You can say to your husband, you know, when I was young, and I don't say you were young, you know, some time ago, I spent some wonderful hours in the loving lap of another woman's husband. That woman was my mum, her husband was my dad. So anyway, I better speak quiet now. Otherwise, you may record me and take off the ending and I get sued for something. Okay, thank you all for listening. Again, I did maybe do one more question for bottom, because all the questions on the top get answered, but never one to the bottom. See what's on the bottom here. Dear Ajahn, how can the Buddhist sutra, the Honey Ball Sutra, be used to explain the function of the mind? Thanks. As you all know, especially those people who look after my food, that I'm allergic to honey. So I'm going to put that question on before I get ash. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go on, yeah, the mic, yeah.
Thank you. So I got a question regarding jhana. You mentioned yesterday in jhana, can't think. So wisdom come after jhana, right? So that's vipassana. Does it mean that vipassana come after jhana? Vipassana go together with samatha. So does it mean in jhana we don't do samatha and vipassana?
Thank you for that. But in those deep meditations, you need vipassana to be able to enter those deep meditations. You have to have the training or the wisdom, understanding to get into those deep meditations. And then while you're in those deep meditations, the thought is frozen. You can't think. But the amazing part of those deep meditations are that positive trauma. You can't forget them. When you emerge from those jhanas, what it was like in there is so clear. For days, weeks, months, years. When we get jhana, you can recall it so simply, and you recall it accurately. You don't distort it. So you have all that evidence there, or if you've done the experiment right before you, now you think of it, you contemplate it, and that's where people get enlightened. Post-jhana. The reason why the post-jhana is where people get enlightened experiences is because pre-jhana, you may be able to get so close to the jhana that the 5 hindrances are suppressed. But that suppression is not stable. It can disappear quickly. But after a jhana, those 5 hindrances are gone phase. That's one of the reasons why you may have heard me tell people, please don't take this too seriously, because you know my sense of humor. It's one of the tricks. You know, you say you've just experienced the jhana. I want to find out if that's true or not. I look at you and I say, actually, women from Hong Kong cannot achieve jhana. And I look at your eyes, see what your reaction is. If your reaction is, okay, Well done, that probably was jhana. Because after you've emerged from jhana, you cannot get offended, no matter what I say. I'm trying to offend you on purpose. Please excuse me doing that. It's just to find out, so I know you know what that state was. So look at something. I'm sorry, people male from Hong Kong, they can't get jhanas either. You know, all they're offended now. But I try to offend them or make them scared or something. Just no, I don't like doing that. But I find out, and you to find out, was that real or not? There's all these tricks which I better not tell anymore. But actually, when you're in the jhanas, you're gathering data. I use science similes because I was trained as a scientist. Have you ever noticed that you've got the instruments all running and you get all these data? Sometimes you make the conclusions way too quickly. When you make those conclusions quickly, they're wrong conclusions. A good example of that, many years ago, are you comfortable there, sitting there? A few years ago, it said it was very strong evidence, from California, where many great scientists live, that if you drink alcohol, you have less chance of having heart attacks. Do you remember that? Is that true? No way. And so when people told me that, you look deeper. It was true that they divided their database, those who drank wine, those who didn't, and it was their cardiac health. In their database, which they based results on, they did find less cardiac disease with people who drank wine. And many people started drinking more wine. But what it was, truth of the matter, in California, the people who drank wine were those with more money to afford proper health care. The people who didn't drink wine didn't have enough money to afford proper health care. And so when they calibrated the database, not by whether you drank wine or not, but your financial status, they find that people who are financially well off, much better health care, and also drank wine with their dinner. The people not so wealthy could not afford wine and beer and whiskey or something, and also they could not afford good health care. It was the financial part of it was the cause for either good health or bad health. And I remember reading a survey, I said, oh yeah, that makes so much more sense. I remember even a monk, years and years ago in South Thailand, and he had a heart attack, and he did, bypass surgery. And I remember that he was by himself, he's a well-known monk, so we used funds for him from Perth. And we got him that surgery, but then he read that report, he'd had a heart attack, didn't want it again, and started drinking alcohol. He's a monk. And when he asked him, why? He said, because it's good for my health. That killed him. That's why some of the research you have to be very careful. That's what happens. So, that's how it works. What else is good health? Going to the toilet. Okay, on your marks, get set, go. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And the next talk is the final session. So you've got now until you go to the toilet. Okay. I never those things, but that's what I answered.